Hi, and welcome to today's IGTV. Today I'm talking about the 4 ways you might be inadvertently pushing your teen away. And of course, this is not at all what you mean or you intend, yet the pain of the result is very real. And your teen is perhaps getting more defiant, more lippy, rude, lying, all the things you never wanted for them that you know you didn't teach them, yet they continue this behavior and you don't know why. I want to talk to you about this today because it's extremely painful, it's very pervasive, and I'm here to say for sure, this is not about fault and blame. So none of this conversation is going to be about fault and blame, okay? This is about acknowledging outdated relationship parenting models that are still very pervasive because it's what we learned was normal. Acknowledging those so you can bring awareness to them and that you feel empowered to change, okay? So this isn't going to be your average video that I've done. And this needs to be talked about, needs to be discussed. Okay, so the 4 ways that you might inadvertently be pushing your teen away. So again, you're an amazing parent. I already know that. Like, you're here and you're watching this, okay? Or maybe you got this link via like a blog or my newsletter. You're here, so you're an amazing parent. You're at least curious. You're at least curious to figure out, man, this hurts. Why, like beyond regular teen stuff, because we know teens get spicy. They get physiologically, their brains are developing where they get 4.5 times more emotions that to them are very visceral and a full body experience because they don't yet have the executive function to filter, regulate, monitor, or even question any of those feelings. So they just are around the world like having full roller coaster, full body experiences of all these new and amazing human emotions that it's totally new for them. And that is giving already you probably an experience of your teenager where you're like, what the holy Hannah, back down a little bit, and stop yelling at me, stop taking it out on me. I'm talking about a little bit beyond that. Okay. So maybe they're even being pushed into, maybe they're being attracted to like toxic relationships, again, lying, substance use, disengagement at school. These are all scientifically researched symptoms of inadvertent ways that they feel pushed away, they're moving away from their relationship with you beyond what is normal. Okay, so my name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, one of the first 70 people in Canada to hold both designations. I was an extremely troubled teen, did all the things that I'm talking about right now and more. I went from straight A's to failing out, F's. It's on my report card. Magically, not magically, but with a whole heck of a lot of decades of therapy, I'm still in the process because I don't think it's ever done, healing myself and thankfully also raising 2 incredible human beings to adulthood who have avoided so many of the very common pitfalls in the teen years. Not because I'm perfect or they are perfect, but because of the work that I chose to do to unlearn what didn't feel right and I knew was not right, and then go through the very hard and awkward place of relearning whilst reparenting myself and raising them. So there you go. Okay, so let's talk about this. So your teenager, I also want to just give a little bit of normalcy. So to what is normal teen stuff. So your teenager is going through 2 different psychological processes at the same time. One is individuation, which is necessary, generally starts around the age of 12. That is a very general term, okay? Where they're figuring out who they are in the world. Because up until then, they are really a reflection of you. They're a mini-me. They're not concerned about being an individual. They're concerned about mimicking and learning to human. And they are learning to human by mimicking you. So they're a little more of a mini-me than they are an autonomous individual, okay? So during puberty, their brain goes through a process of individuation, which is figuring out who they are as an autonomous human, which just because you birthed them or have raised them doesn't mean that they are going to have the same, and maybe the same DNA, that they are going to have the same values and beliefs as you. And that's a pretty hard pill to swallow as a parent. I don't know about you, but it's a hard one. So they go through individuation to figure out who they are when they're not being a reflection of you. Now that they have the humaning skills, they're learning to adult. And so that's where they're putting their own flavor and their own spin on things. They're also going through a process called differentiation. And that literally means to push against and go against every single thing that you taught them, that you said would work and is right and is wrong and all of the things. And you're like, woo! So differentiation is also a normal process in the human brain. It is a tricky one. It is difficult because you're like, why? Why are you doing all the things that we taught you? We're never like, why would you even do it? That's differentiation, okay? It's part of the teenage brain. They need to experiment with all of the novel, risk-taking things that they know are outside of the fence, if you will, in order to experience natural consequences and figure out maybe you were right and maybe they do disagree. I don't know. I'm just saying that that's normal. So the 4 ways that you might inadvertently be pushing them away happen these can happen in childhood. And again, I can't say enough. This is not about blame and shame. I'm not here to blame and shame anybody. I'm here to bring awareness, should you choose. Okay. And if you're here on Instagram, I'd love a follow. And if you're here on YouTube, I would love a subscribe. So this can look like the behavior, like they want to spend more time at other people's families, other people's homes. They are sharing even less with you, which again is a normal part of the teen development. This is about you being willing to be curious. Is this normal teen development, or is this something that I might accidentally be contributing to because of the way what you learned was normal, what you learned and how you were raised. So one of the biggest things is believing that as a parent, your job is to tell your teenager what is right and what is wrong. So with your teenager, you are constantly in the black-white world of that's not right. We don't know. That's not how we do this. That's not how, no, that's not right. That's not, no, that's wrong. And so you're believing that by amplifying for your teenager what is right and what is wrong. So like being their boss, modeling, like, look, if I was your boss and you showed up late every day, AKA school, or you just blew me off and you'd get fired. That's wrong. You have one job. I have a job. I go to school. You're putting all of this like right, wrong on them. Okay. And I'm not saying I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this is the way that this is communicated. Okay. So, you are in a bent that is very much about constantly like reminding your teen of what is right and what is wrong in the world with your beliefs, your expectations. Okay, which is number 2, is that you believe, because again, this is probably how you were raised, and this isn't against your parents either, okay? This has been going on for 100 years. We're talking about legacies here. And this is, again, it's researched over and over. That expectations, okay, mean that your child needs to hold what you value as important to them as it is to you, okay? So that usually comes across in grades, right? Grades. Second, I think, would be like chores, right? And helping around the house. That your expectations about their performance at school and the grades that they need to get, etc. And that is constantly reinforced, and it might be reinforced by consequences. Like if they don't get the right grades, if they don't get, they lose phone privileges, they lose gaming, maybe social activity, maybe, rides or whatever, which none of that's necessarily a bad thing. It's that it's based in your teenager needing to live within the window that you've determined is acceptable, not based on the law, based on your comfort zone and your beliefs. That your teenager you're making it very clear to your teenager that your expectations are more important than them beginning to discover what matters to them. That's an expectation. An expectation is a projection of what is important to you and how someone else needs to behave, do, say, be, so that you get to have the feeling and experience, usually about being a good parent. And I know that I 100% did that. Oh my gosh, I so did that. Didn't work when the wheels fell off and my oldest was diagnosed with anxiety and ADHD and autism and nothing was going well. I was no longer the good parent, the perfect parent that I thought I needed to be. So I certainly did my fair share of expectation, whether how they dressed, was their hair combed every day, did they brush their teeth, like all the regular hygiene things that seemed normal, but as a teenager they had no part in. How they talk to other people, all of these levels of expectation so that we were proper, right? Like I had this heavy duty thing about expectations, and there was a distinct opposition that was allowing my teenagers to figure out in this process of individuation and differentiation that I mentioned before, who are they? Who are they as people? Who are they without me driving their daily behavior and daily decisions, which is normal when they're a child. Okay. That's your job when they're a child. And as a teenager, am I struggling when my teenager's showing up outside of my expectations? Because my role is changing, and because nobody tells us this as parents, this can be really painful. Okay. So expectations is good. Expectations is not good. Expectations, is one of the second ways that this can be happening. Okay. So the third way is when you believe that pointing out ways your teenager could improve is the best way to get them to improve. Now, this is kind of a subset of expectations because what should they be improving on, right? Like that's kind of subjective, really, whether they should get a C or get an A or get a D or get a B, I don't know, whatever. But when you may have been raised in a home or in an environment where, which this is very common for my Gen X, Gen Ys, that pointing out what your teenager could improve in. You're constantly pointing out where they're falling short. Simply as like being a parent, being like, well, if you did it this way, it might be easier. If you did it this way, you might get a better grade. If you spend more time studying, that might really work for you. If you all of these things, right? So, that's a huge way that you might be disconnecting from your teen, is if you're pointing out where perhaps they're falling short of their potential, if this is their potential and they're down here, and you are really focused on this gap and pointing out if they just did this, they could get it. If they just did that, they could, if you just did it this way, that is definitely going to be, and that has to do, as I said, because that line is actually your expectations. Yeah. It's a made up story that nobody really has any proof about. So that's going to be definitely number 3. That's huge. Here's perhaps a lesser known number 4. Gossip. Do you talk about other people behind their backs in front of your teen? Do you speak in negative or derogatory ways about anyone? Your boss, a colleague, family members, do you talk about other people in really derogatory ways around your teen? That is gossip. Not gonna let you off the hook on that one. That's gossip. Because here's what ends up happening, even if you believe those things are true. Even if perhaps you guys are having a good laugh about it. Dr. Brené Brown calls gossip common enemy intimacy. It's a way of hot wiring connection with someone to trash talk someone else at their expense when they're not around, so that you and that person have something meaningful to talk about, even have a good laugh about. That is counterfeit connection. That is counterfeit. That is not connection. And when you are gossiping and talking about other people and talking trash to them around your teen, even if it's not to your teen, but around your teen, your teenager's brain is so hypersensitive in a good way that they know you may also be talking trash about them to other people. Because if you're willing to do it about person X or person Y, who says you're not doing it about them? And that very subtle and unfortunately cultural normal gossip, you might think like, well, I don't gossip, Allie. I don't gossip. Like, I'm just sharing what was true. And if you're willing to discuss someone's behaviors, actions, and impact in a negative, derogatory way, are you willing to say it to that person's face? Because what you don't say to their face, but you're willing to say behind their back, that is gossip. That's the little litmus test. If you do that around your teen will not feel safe to truly be authentic and share things with you. Now, a lot of these culminate into one core element: shame. Constantly pointing out what someone is doing wrong or constantly needing to correct them, that is shame. It is not encouragement, which is what I think that you want to do, because I know you're an amazing parent. I think what you want to do is encourage, but encouraging doesn't seem to have the same snapback reaction. So what you might have made up is it doesn't work, and so you want the results in order to quell your own fear of not feeling in control. And so you've gone to correction or criticism, and that's what it is. It's constant criticism. When you are constantly correcting, it becomes shame. So let me give you some examples. I have my laptop open here. You shouldn't feel that way. You're just being oversensitive. Like, did it really happen that way? That is shaming. That is an invalidation of what is true for someone else because you don't believe in your experience that it is possible or could have happened, or perhaps it has never happened for you. That is shaming. Comparison. So when you're comparing to siblings or cousins or friends and saying, your sister was just more advanced in reading when she was your age, or your sister's just better at math than you, or your brother is just more athletic than you are. I don't care how true you want to convince me that statement is, that is shaming. It is a statement that is saying you are less than. Or I didn't do these things when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed. That is shaming. You are making sure in some small way that your teenager knows they are less than you, less than a friend or a sibling. Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for admitting that. Thank you. I have great admiration and respect for the courage it took for you to write that comment. Thank you. You're welcome here. We all are doing what we learned was normal. and thanks to decades of research by incredibly intelligent people, so much smarter than me, we know the very negative impact. So we will often use comparison and criticism in order to correct, because it creates the result you want. It's faster. The reason it's faster is because shame is a threat of disconnection from the people that our brains are wired to seek connection from most. Our family, our parents, our siblings. We are wired to seek that connection, we are driven for that connection and belonging. So if that kind of pain, which that is also, by the way, the definition of shame, an all-encompassing emotion, and it's a deep pain. A deep inner pain. That kind of critical comparison, constant black-white correction, reminding someone of how they're falling short as a means of encouragement. And that pain is what you are perhaps not noticing, that is eliciting the pain within your teen to get them to instantly correct, because it's relying on their brain's need for survival. This is how we're wired, for survival, to be connected to you and seek your approval first and foremost. So in the short term, it will work. Here's another way that shame is showing up is, again, smack talking or back talking other people. That is shaming. Okay, that kind of constant criticism is shaming. The even statements that say, you know what, you're just not good at math. You're just not cut out for math. Now, look, that might sound like a really empathetic statement for a child who's really struggling in math and always has, and they hate math. That would not be the statement that I think that you're intending, is to say, you're just not good at math, you know? That's a shaming statement. So, when you see, and here's how gossip ties into this. When I'm just looking at my laptop, when you're telling embarrassing or revealing stories in an attempt, what ends up happening is you are, in gossip, okay? Is you're wanting to hotwire your connection with your teen, right? Because you want to have something fun to talk about, or something about something that is mutually crappy about someone else, perhaps. Okay. But what ends up happening is that this shaming and gossip, it becomes a threat to them, a threat that emotional pain, the all-encompassing emotional pain of shame is coming, and that manipulates your child's attitude and behavior. That is the instant result that you want and are trying to get, and that's what you see when you use constant correction, comparison, pointing out what they could do better, where they could improve. It's all about things they're not doing that they should change. What you're seeing is the instant manipulation of your child's attitude or behavior based on their brain's hardwiring to require belonging and connection from you. And so they change as fast as possible to relieve that inner pain that they are experiencing. And that is shame. Shame is an all-encompassing emotional experience in which your teenager then begins to exhibit self-conscious behavior because they're starting to build a hypervigilance of noticing where they need to improve, anything to avoid this pain. And it's leading to them to strive to hide perceived or imagined deficiencies, okay, which leads to lying. It leads to them perhaps spending more time at other families' houses in toxic relationships. What it eventually leads to is your teenager disassociating from what is true for themselves, so they never belong with themselves to pay the necessary price of belonging with you. Anything to stop the shame. Shame erodes self-confidence, and shame disconnects. It disconnects from you, and it forces them over time to disconnect from themselves. Dr. Brené Brown says that one of the best ways to build shame resilience, and now I'm talking to you, the parent, okay? Because you were probably raised in these same ways, and that's okay. That's okay, we're all here. I'm going to tell truth, not because I'm blaming anybody, but because I believe you are an amazing parent. And so when we have awareness and we know better, we do better. Recognize shame and understand its triggers. So what I'm trying to do right today is help you to recognize behaviors that you and I were parented under as means of getting your teenager to create an experience of control where they change quickly. That's control, okay? Manipulation, control. So let's recognize it. Let's recognize what shame is. Because I believe what you want, what you've always wanted, is to encourage your teen, okay? And I'll get more to that in a little second. Understand shame triggers. Understand your own shame triggers. What triggers that feeling of insufficiency for you? What triggers that feeling of fear of disconnection to someone for you? What did you have when you were growing up that was a fear of being disconnected to your parents? It was usually a lack of performance, external outcomes, grades, friends, school, anything that made your parents look bad, okay? Because that was parenting of the era. And it still is very pervasive now. So what was it for you that created the fear of disconnection with your parents based on something they said or did or something, such that you needed to instantly switch? That's shame, okay? What are your shame triggers? Because when you are aware of what shame is anything that is letting someone know they are less than. They're just less than. They're disappointing. That's why saying, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, that's a shame statement. You've fallen short somehow. It also can come from a true belief, and this is why gossip is so shaming, that you believe you are better than other people. From an arrogant, self-righteous place, that you believe you are better than a family member, a colleague, a boss. That is arrogance. And in the face of arrogance, other people are likely to feel shame because your arrogance isn't just going to go in one direction. It's going to slip and slide into other key relationships that you deeply care about. And arrogance comes from actually a low self-confidence, a fear of being seen as less than. So on the outside, it comes out as conceit or arrogance. That doesn't make us broken or bad, just as a point of awareness, that's all. Okay? Practice critical awareness of the influences leading to shame. So this is what I want to say. Practice critical influences leading to shame. Now, this comes from you owning your shame story, because when you have the critical awareness, I'm going to use school for instance because it's a big thing, that your teenager falling below what feels comfortable for you as grade level. Maybe it's a B, maybe it's a C. Okay, I don't know, whatever. Then when that begins to trigger, that when school is an influence for your own shame story, that's the opportunity for you to begin doing the work right there. When you feel your shame story is triggered, before you go projecting that in order to quelch your own insecurity and fear, that's the moment where you seek help. Okay, this is the kind of stuff, this generational stuff that when I work with parents, that I help them to untie so that you can reparent yourself while also changing the pattern with your own kids. So you reach out to others, call someone. I'm in a shame storm. My kids' report card just came back and I feel like a crappy parent and like I failed. Or I just got a note home from the school and it's a shaming, because shaming is like a very, very well-known practice in the education system. Shame flows down, you know? They shame you so that you're supposed to go shame your kid, which is supposed to manipulate their behavior to get them to change. Right? Okay, easy peasy. Wrong. I got a letter home from the school. I'm feeling really shamed. I feel shamed. I feel made less than. I'm feeling like, before you now transfer your experience, that very painful and real experience, back onto your child about the letter you just got from the school, stop. Call a friend. Write it out. I'm feeling shame. This is painful. I don't want people to believe that I'm less than. This brings up for me when my parents would tell me I was less than, and or the school said this, or my ballet teacher said this, or my football coach said this, or whatever. Okay, so I want you to name the shame when it occurs. And I work with a lot of parents in my programs who are on the receiving end of shame from schools. And I can tell you, I help them write response letters. Not from retaliation, from firm, compassionate respect. Because when you model respect, you're more likely to get it. To say, I'm not playing this shame game. Shaming me and asking me to now shame my child is not support. That is not a game. That is not a relationship game that I'm going to participate in. That's manipulation. You're expecting me to fear you enough and what you think of me enough that I'm going to go and crap all over my kid. No. Okay? So, shame is a fear of disconnection. It's the fear that something we've done or failed to do, an ideal that we've not lived up to. An ideal that we've not lived up to. That's parental expectations for the most part, okay? Or a goal that we've not accomplished makes us inherently unworthy of connection. And in the face of constant comparison, criticism, correction, and reminding our teen where they're falling short, those are shame. They're constantly falling short. That's what they feel, okay? So I want to just answer a few of these things. Did this with my daughter, though not through gossip, comparison, but expectations, pointing out the need to reach your perfection. Yeah, and you know what? That's okay. I know your heart is good. It's always been good. We do what we learned. Okay? It is never too late to repair a relationship, to go back and say, I've just noticed this about myself. And ironically, as much as I think I might have been shaming you, I now feel ashamed that I'm doing this. So there's just lots of room for grace and compassion and healing. It's never too late, okay? How do you encourage and allow them to be at their best potential? Well, first of all, that's a great question. Encouragement is reinforcing positive messages. It's not blowing smoke up their ass, okay? Yes, I'm going to swear. It's not blowing smoke up their butt. Oh, you're so amazing. Here's the participation ribbon. No, it's not. It's real affirmation. I thank you for it's being able to focus on what is someone doing right. It's actually a psychology tool called Make Right. What are they doing right? And this is a real shift as a parent of a teen. Well, let me tell you, because there's enough things that they want to do, that they're doing wrong, that you want them to change, that it's so easy to focus on that. And what happens is in your reticular activating system is then, which reinforces your data. It's supposed to make you right, because making you right makes you feel better. That's how our brains work. So you will only see what they're doing wrong. You will only see that they're not measuring up to, okay? So this is a choice. It is a conscious choice to reprogram your brain to begin to point out what they're doing right. Maybe they said something kind to a friend. Maybe they were on time once. Maybe they put their dishes in the dishwasher. Maybe what is one thing a day one thing every day that you can affirm your teenager about, not necessarily what they did, because we're not focusing on outcomes, because we're not getting them to earn your love and approval. Who they are, you know? Even if it's just an empathetic statement that says, you know, being a teen is hard these days. I can't even imagine. That's an affirmation, you know? Or school must feel really dumb and irrelevant in this world you're growing up in. That is an affirmation that their thinking isn't entitled, self-centered. They're all the things that are kind of normal in teen behavior. An empathy statement or a validation statement can also be an affirmation, right? When they get super angry, and please, this is not about not having boundaries. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, how can you be on your teenager's team? Because when you think you're on your teenager's team using outdated parenting model, you are likely shaming, because it's what we learned. How do you get over there on your teenager's team? How do you say, I believe in you. I know this is hard. This sounds hard. Maybe you don't know. This sounds really hard. I'm here to support you. Maybe they don't want your support. Maybe this is going to be a journey of earning them back. Allie, remove that language. I did not say earning them back. I did say that, and that was incorrect. Please forgive me. What I intended to say was rebuilding trust, rebuilding the foundation of trust with them, that they can be emotionally safe with you to discover who they are. So what you need to reprogram in your brain is that encouraging them means they're not going to do it your way. Full stop. It means you are letting go of the control that you had and were using via manipulation and the fear of disconnection. It means that is so hard. Because we had a lot of that when they were kids. Letting go of your need for control while they find their way. And it's going to be a hot mess, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to fail. And you don't need to condone it. You don't need to say, that's okay that you're failing in life. That's fine. You don't need to say that. You can say, life is hard. Because if you are holding your teenager to a higher standard than you hold yourself, that is arrogance. If you are holding your teenager to not make any of the mistakes that you made, to know everything they're supposed to know about themselves in order to pursue this path that makes you happy, that's arrogance. And it will lead to shame. If you have this crystal ball version of your teenager of what their potential is, which is a BS made up story because you have no data, you have absolutely no proof, at least as far as I know, in the future of what is going to happen and what is not going to happen, then you need to go smash that crystal ball, because that crystal ball of what their potential is and how they're constantly falling short is the biggest disconnection between you and your teen right now. So let it go. Your teenager will determine their potential. You are riding shotgun. You are encouraging, you're finding right, you're letting them know, yeah, it sucks when you fail. You're not going to rescue them. Nope. Failed that course. Okay. That must be hard. Like, how did that feel? Is it disappointing? Did it's rough. What do you think is the next step? You're not rescuing them from having failed. You're not writing to the teacher. Nope. You're just saying, I love you. And I'm going to love you while you go figure out your potential. I'm going to have boundaries around the way that you're allowed to speak to me. And I understand I'm going to be mentoring your developing brain that is a hot mess as it is. And I'm going to give you some grace with that. And I'm still going to have boundaries. And I'm going to have boundaries around the way you're allowed to treat me. And I'm also going to put on my parenting pants. And I'm going to acknowledge how I was raised under a tool called shame and emotional manipulation via the fear of disconnection in order to get you to change. And I am going to stand up and be the person that says no more. This won't continue in my family. This won't continue with you. Okay, so that is the big thing about potential, okay? for X driving at 16, but she's 18, needs to be able to do for herself as an adult. Yeah, just don't be compensating for your ex. That's the biggest thing I can ever say, is stop trying to compensate for how anybody else is parenting. You need to parent in a way that feels authentic to you, because otherwise your teenager never gets to know you. So that would be kind of sad. Yeah, no compensating. Okay, so here's the last thing I want to say. Correction is shaming unless it is coupled with connection. Okay, this is researched for decades. The only version of correction that will ever work is correction that's coupled with connection. And that means understanding, as we said, becoming aware of the unhealthy relationship tools that we were raised under, okay? Like shaming, guilt, criticism, comparison, manipulation, punishment, anything that induced a pain in order to snap your teen back to how you wanted it to be, because parenting was equated to control. You just need to be in control all the time. And if you're not in control, well, you're obviously a bad parent, which is crap. If you are interested in the kind of connection, the lasting kind of connection that builds a healthy relationship into adulthood and is the foundation for the kind of correction and mentorship that your teen needs from you, then type support below and I will send you the link for my free masterclass with my proven 3-step framework and how I unlearned and relearned in raising my kids and supporting thousands of parents for the last 16 years to do the same. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful. I will see you next week. Bye.